You're listening to Finish the Damn Book, the podcast for procrastinators. Susie Schaefer, known as the Book Doula, works with authors and publishing professionals to turn stories into movements that make an impact.
Welcome to this episode of Finish the Damn Book. I'm your host, Susie Schaefer. When you need creative support and a respite from the distractions and temptations of generative AI, MJ Halberstadt will hold space for you. As a ghostwriter, developmental editor, and writing coach, he provides incisive yet energizing guidance that will shake up your creative process and coax out your authentic voice and point of view. At Find the Words, MJ is writing more humanity in an increasingly distracted world. Welcome, MJ.
Thanks so much for having me, Susie. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So, how long have you worked as an editor and ghostwriter, and how did you get started?
The easiest answer to that question is 2 years. I was previously working as a copywriter, and I really hated it, and I wasn't good at it. And eventually, a prospective client sort of recommended to me that I get in touch with her business coach, because the coach, they were interested to hire a ghostwriter for a book, and that wasn't something that I hadn't considered doing. And we hopped on the phone for a discovery call, and within 15 minutes, that coach, their name is Lori, said, "You're the person who's going to ghostwrite my book." And I was like, "Are you sure? Like, I haven't done this before. Do you want to talk about a trial period, maybe?" And they were like, "Sure, if that makes you feel comfortable." And so that's what we did, and I wound up ghostwriting the full book. And I really took to it. I love working on books. It's a good sized project. It's a great way to tap into a person's um qualities that make them the most unique. And it marries some of my previous lives as a playwright and as a teacher. In some ways, I've been doing this kind of work forever, but as I said, the easiest answer is that it's been 2 years that I've been working on books.
Awesome. Okay. So, a couple things there I just
Yeah.
want to dive into. First of all, I love the fact that you were willing to take that leap of faith and say, you know what? I've not done this before, but let's give it a go. I think that is amazing. And I think a lot of people forget that sometimes you do have to take that leap of faith and just trust yourself and your intuition. We'll talk about that more later. But also, okay, so you mentioned that you had a past life as a playwright. Do you know which era that was in?
Which era? Oh, so to be sure, this was my my lifetime.
Oh,
Um,
this lifetime, but formerly. Yes.
yes. Yeah, I earned a I went to college for theater education, got my master's in playwriting, and I
Wow.
wrote and produced plays in Boston from the ages like 21 to 32 or something. And then I moved from Boston to Portland, and I left theater on the East Coast. It was part of my COVID life story shakeup, and I miss aspects of being involved in theater, but I haven't sought it out since moving. And in a way, I feel like I've sort of shuffled up that creative impulse, and I'm expressing it differently in this season of my current lifetime.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, because I am a former theater kid too. So, oh
Hmm.
yes.
There's a lot
Would
of us in the publishing world.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's because we do have that creative ability, and so it does get funneled into the type of work that we do. It's interesting because I was a former dancer, singer. I played in the band, that wasn't my favorite, but I love marching band. But also did all the musicals, a whole bunch of theater. Ended up doing some commercial work in television, worked in radio. So I definitely had a background of wanting to be in the creative arts in some way, and so me getting into publishing just seemed like a very natural transition. But as a kid, I was an avid reader. I loved reading, and books have always kind of been my thing.
That all resonates. A lot of that is very similar for me. Yeah, I remember as a kid loving the Roald Dahl books, and my mom would bring me shopping, and we'd be walking around a department store, and she'd have to remind me, like, look where you're walking. You can't walk and read a book at the same time. In some ways, it also feels like a homecoming.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. And I think it's so interesting how our careers have changed and how we still have the creative part, but there's also a lot of technical aspects, especially when it comes to writing. And even just doing the work that I do was just a lot of that's behind the scenes in working with the author. So I think it's fascinating that you have that background.
And I think it's a helpful thing because so many of the authors that we're working with, they're also new to the space. And so one of the other things that we get to help authors with is entering into a new genre.
Yeah. Speaking of genres, you work on both you do book coaching, developmental editing, and ghostwriting services for nonfiction books. Do you do any fiction at all?
I'm working on a novel for myself, but I don't work with clients on fiction.
Okay. From those three, coaching, editing, and ghostwriting, do you have a favorite?
All of those terms feel squishy to me. It feels like that's just what I have thrown onto my website to make it clear to folks how we can contain a scope of work. And developmental editing in particular is a very, very squishy term. But I think it's the most representative of my favorite way to work with authors because it is so collaborative, and I am a good match for an author who wants to participate in the creative process and really wants to be involved in it. I have walked away from projects where the author wanted me to make all the decisions and provide most of the content. And I've also walked away from projects where the author is holding it very closely and isn't actually open to a point of view. And I'm not saying that that is like the best way for any developmental editor or book doula to work. I just know that that's what works for me. And I think that I have certain sensibilities as a writer, and that's sort of part of what you're paying for. And with developmental editing, we're passing it back and forth. We're testing things out. We have a question about something, and we'll spend a week or so exploring it, and then come back and like talk about that question again. Um, so that's a roundabout answer to that question. And I'll just throw in there that I've discovered that one of my favorite ways to work with authors is in 6-week sprints. And we'll usually work on the project over the course of multiple 6-week sprints. But sometimes I will work with an author um, on one service tier and then shift to a different one after we have paused and had an opportunity to work and research independently, and then we come back together. My answer is also sort of D, all of the above.
I like that. And I like the fact that you are very aware of the different types of authors that are going to come to you based on their involvement and how much they're attached to the book. Because as you know, sometimes business books, there is a level of detachment. It's not like if you're working on a legacy book or a memoir, there's a little bit more detachment. Yeah, it's still their baby, but at the same time, they're like, yeah, you make whatever changes you need to. It's kind of a different vibe. So I love the fact that you respect that and that you acknowledge that, because I think that's a very true statement about how different authors can be on that spectrum.
And it's all about a match, and it's a reason why I love to know other ghostwriters and other developmental editors, because when we all are working with the people that are aligned to us, everyone does better.
Yes, absolutely. That's so true. And you probably find that you are now attracting the types of clients that you enjoy working with. I found that too, that my business shifted. And the more that I was in alignment and the more authentic I was, that I was attracting those types of clients versus just taking everything because I needed to pay the bills.
1000%. And I'm in a coaching community, and I'm in community with writers and editors, and people are often so afraid to niche because they're afraid that it's going to limit them. But I've found that it's so the opposite. The deeper you go, the deeper you are.
Yeah.
There's I don't know. There's
It's
something.
all about having that total clarity, and you know which lane that you're going to be in, and you stay in that lane, and then the right people find you. It's kind of crazy how it works. So we met through the publishing tea with Tina Dietz and Twin Flame Studios. And how did you connect with Tina and then get to the tea? So yeah,
Um,
so you were introduced by Becky into the tea, and then you found me, which is an amazing way that when we collaborate with other people in our space, it just opens the doors. Like, I would have never met you if we hadn't been on that call together.
yeah, I have felt really, really, really privileged and really supported as I've been on this journey in this season of my practice of trying to build my community, and folks are just willing to talk. Everyone that I've met has been willing to jump on a call with me, or send a message, send a resource. It's been a very abundance mindset kind of place.
Yeah. Now, when you're working as a ghostwriter, do you also do those 6-week sprints with the author?
Yeah. Um, yes. And I prefer to start with what am I calling it now? The book concept starter package, where what we're doing is we're developing a really clear concept, test chapter somewhere in the middle,
Mm.
and usually some material that goes in the intro. As far as word count, it's like the slowest part of the process, and then once we stack more sprints into the mix, then that becomes a much faster process
Yeah.
of generating the content. And
Yeah.
um
It's kind of like a train. Like, once you get it on the tracks and you start going, then it just kind of takes on a life of its own a little bit. And the forward movement, I think, happens faster. Like, it kind of speeds up.
I agree. And I'm such an evangelist for the 6-week sprints, because it gives us really significant goalposts along the way, and it forces us to create some deadlines for ourselves, and then also to shift gears when we need to. It breaks the process down into different stages. When I'm able to, it's important to be able to spend like a week in the same space as the author, so that gives us some wiggle room around figuring out when to do that.
Yeah, because if you give it all to an author, say, here's the whole process, it's going to be overwhelming to them because
Exactly. Yeah.
it's massive, right? I mean, I even kind of do the same thing with my work where we basically, once we decide, okay, we're ready to go, I break it down into chunks, talk about next steps. And because I don't want to, if I give them the entire timeline of what's going to happen over 4 to 6 months, they're going to be like, what? Instead, it's easier to break it down into smaller chunks and say, here's what we're going to do next. And while this is happening, you and I are going to work on this so that they understand that there's a flow to it. But also, I feel it's really important to keep the author engaged, because if there's too much downtime, they start getting up in their head and they they go through imposter syndrome and they start freaking out. And that's very normal. So it's better to have kind of a pace that you're setting and then keep them on track with that.
Yeah. In a way, it's ritualizing the creative process. It is forcing reflection, and an invitation to like reset the goals and to reaffirm our intentions. Thanks for those reflections. That's helping
Yeah.
me appreciate it even more.
Yeah. And honestly, I think that's important because sometimes things do change along the way. For example, you might have
They have
a
to.
title in mind, for example, and then you get partway through the process and realize that's not the title. This is the title, right?
Hmm.
Because it becomes clear that that's part of the arc of the story, or whether you say, okay, now this pivotal moment, instead of it being more in the middle of the book, we really need to kind of kick off the book with this huge events that happen and then backtrack and say, how did we get there? So I think a lot of those things are really important because you have to be able to have that flexibility to pivot and make changes and make it a better book than just, okay, we're doing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, I think if you're not changing your mind about something existential about the project, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, completely. So what do you feel is your biggest success? Do you have a book that you really either loved working on and that is considered a success for you, or do you have something that was a famous person or something like that?
My favorite project that I've worked on is Bree Abramowicz's book, Polyworker. I supported her as a coach and as a developmental editor. And it's the thing that I hold up as the best example of the thing that I want to do more of. It is a super incisive, but also really funny look at work culture and the future of work culture and the sort of myth of the 9 to 5 being the thing that will save you. It's about portfolio careers and the evolution of work in the age of AI, and the fact that many of us need to be our own personal brands. It's also an honest reflection on the challenges that that presents and the many ways that we can burn ourselves out. And Bree is a really valuable thought leader in this space. She's got a great podcast, and I think this book is a really important pillar document of the thought leadership that she is creating. And I think that's one of the big reasons why it's such a successful text, because it's a part of the ecosystem of what she is saying, and there's so much more to be said, and it's a great way to open the door to the world of portfolio careers. Um, but honestly, I would say one of the ways that it's one of my greatest successes was learning that so Bree writes a great newsletter, and she attended one of my workshops, and something I said in one of the workshops inspired her to write some pieces in her newsletter that led to writing a short series of essays, one of which I sent an email in reply to, and I was just like, this one is a particularly great newsletter, Bree. Like, I think that you could expand this into a book. And she sent me a voice memo about an hour later saying, MJ, I was thinking about you when I wrote it. I think you're right. I don't know how to do this as a book. Like, can we talk about it? And so I felt like I got to be there for the inception and support along the way. And I'm proud that at the end of the day, it is such a Bree creation. I loved playing a supportive role in that process, but the story is all her, the point of view is all her, the sense of humor sure is her. I am not as quick with the pop culture reference as she is, and she layers them in so beautifully, and it's a really, really fun book that I'm a fan of simply as a reader, in addition to having been there for much of the journey.
Yeah, that is really that's very cool too. When you are able to work with people that you just have that synchronicity and let's talk about intuition then, because obviously you're following your intuition based on that newsletter that she sent out and said, wow, this would make a great book and those kinds of things. Do you find yourself really just trusting your gut and following your intuition a lot?
I think so, sometimes to my detriment. Um, and I'm a big time Aquarius, so I can be sort of in my head and yeah, paying attention to maybe the non-literal level of things. I think intuition is really important when I work with authors because they're coming to me with something that is really precious and really vulnerable. And I feel that it is my job to take it seriously, but not literally,
Right.
because their first draft is usually not expressed as the way that it wants to be in the end, and that's not a criticism of it. It has to hatch as something less mature, so that we can shape it and then use our discernment along the way. um I think I have to use my intuition when it comes to the emotional experience
Mm.
of supporting an author, and pushing back gently while also affirming what they're bringing to the table. And yes, it's important to understand what's going on in the market, and to look at evidence, and to be mindful of the realities of publishing and marketing a book. Like,
Yep.
that is all really vital in terms of making sure that the book reaches people. But I'm a proselytizer of using relationships as the key to developing a book, and not just with me as a coach or editor or a ghostwriter, but also with the readers and with the community that the book is for.
Yeah. I think relationships are everything. It's the whole way that we're connected as humans. And so it's really, really critical that we do understand how to hold space for the author in those situations too. So then you
And it's the thing that AI cannot do.
exactly. I was going to ask you about AI next. So I love that you just segued that for me. There's a lot of conversation around this. I just saw a New York Times article about a woman who supposedly wrote a fiction novel, and they were like, nope, this is like X% AI. It's obvious.
Oh, was this Shy Girl?
Yes, thank you, Shy Girl. And of course, I reposted it because I was like, guys, we've been talking about this for a while now, and this is why you do not want to go down this path. So, I'd love to hear your take on it.
Okay.
That's
Let me pour myself some wine first.
right. Okay, can I just tell you that I think that you need to be the ghostwriter for me for my book.
Okay, I'm down.
Yeah.
Let's chat about it.
I think first of all, your sense of humor totally gets me, and the fact that you like wine, that's a really good thing.
Oh goodness, AI.
It's a huge topic. The conversations that I've been having lately with people is helping them understand that AI does not have a soul. So when you're writing, your soul, your persona, excuse me, will come out in the words that you write. AI is not capable of doing that. Yeah, if you're doing website content, or if you want your newsletter to sound a little bit better or something like that, it's fine to use AI for creating an outline, or maybe fixing a little bit of your grammar. But to write the bulk of a book, it's no bueno.
Yeah.
Do you ever fear that there's going to come a moment where people that are editors and ghostwriters get replaced by AI, or do you think that that is just not going to be a thing?
It's happening to some extent, and it's harder to get a job as a copywriter, certainly, and a lot of the energy that is going into the market of ghostwriting is being gobbled up by AI slop.
Yep.
I'm divesting my energy from those types of projects, and trying to find the people who I mean, this is one of the reasons why I primarily work with coaches and
Uh-huh.
speakers,
Right.
because the book is not just a book, it is one component of their overall content ecosystem.
Yep. It's an asset in
And
the big scheme of things.
one of the thought experiments that I sometimes go through, sometimes by myself, is I imagine that there is an advanced generative AI. In my mind, it's called Platonic, and it delivers to you the Platonic ideal version of the book that you had in mind when it occurred to you, like, I should write this book. You snap your fingers and there it is in front of you. I don't think that that is the best thing for an author, because that robs them of the complexity and the journey and the transformation that happens when you sit with an idea over time, when you read other texts that are adjacent to the thing that you're creating, when you use conversations as a part of the process for developing and refining the thing that you're making and educating yourself about how other people receive the thing that you have to say. And I think, like, just as importantly, what it does to you to express yourself and to be seen and heard. And I think it can be extremely shocking if that happens in a too abrupt way. I think of someone like, this is like a weird comparison, but Susan Boyle on Britain's Got Talent,
Oh,
nobody
yeah.
knew who she was. She's saying, "I dreamed a dream," and before the season was over, she had a nervous breakdown because suddenly all this attention was on her and her story, and she didn't know what to do with that. And I think that in some ways, like, writing a book is easing gently into the hot water that like otherwise would blanch you like a string bean.
Yeah. And I agree with that too, because it is a process, it is a journey, it is an experience to write and publish a book. And so you're right. If it were easy and you just could snap your fingers and it was done, you're missing that whole component of what does it mean to you to go through that experience.
Mhm.
It's so wild too, because I've worked with authors, and sometimes I work with an author for maybe a year, and the person that I meet at the beginning is not the same person at the end.
No,
It's a
no.
I think that it actually has an impact on us at a cellular level, because
Mhm.
it changes your belief systems, it changes how you feel about certain things. It's so more comprehensive than just being like, oh, I published a book. It's
Yeah.
Yeah. And the people that do those really quick books, they're missing out on the experience of
Mhm.
working with an editor and working with a book doula or whatever, because it's completely different.
I think that inefficiency is a merit to the slow writing process
Uh-huh.
because it forces you to be discerning and
Yes.
forces you to figure out what actually matters.
Yeah. So totally true. Yeah. Now, one of the things um that I just discovered about you is that you also love the cards. So you have your cards with you, right?
I do.
So I think that we should pull a card or two from your deck and see what it is that our listeners need to know right now. And then I will do the same for my deck. And we'll just see what messages come out today.
Dang.
This is so fun.
You
I
give
just
me
did a
that.
reading for I actually do group readings quite a bit. And so people that might be in my local community will actually ask me to come and do birthday parties, bachelorette parties, women's get-togethers, those kinds of things. And I'll go ahead and do readings for groups of people, which is actually quite fun.
All right, I pulled the Son of Wands. In this deck, suns
This
are
So suns are like pentacles. Yes.
that's SON.
Oh,
No,
sun.
I think
Oh,
it's like the page.
so it's like a page. Yeah. Page of wands, you said?
Yep.
Page of wands. So that a page of wands would be starting something new. And basically, yeah, so embarking on a new project,
Mm-hmm.
starting a new journey.
Mm-hmm. I've pulled this card a few times. Actually, it was a couple weeks ago. I treated myself to a solo business retreat
Oh,
so that I could focus on the big picture of my business.
yes.
And I pulled the Son of Wands at the beginning of the retreat as I was trying to set intentions.
Well, and the other thing too is that, we're coming up to a full moon on April 1st. So Full moons are really about releasing and letting go of what no longer serves you. But we're still kind of in that energy from this last weekend of the new moon, which is in
Mm-hmm.
Aries. Now, Aries is the sign of taking action, right? And moving forward and stepping into something that is unknown. And so the Page of Wands is really about saying, yeah, don't be afraid to do that. Like, make the move. This is the time. We just went into the fire horse lunar year, and we just came out, it just came through spring equinox. So this is all, and we're in Aries season. So it's all about not being afraid to take that step forward and to move into a space of, I'm willing to take a risk and start something new.
Hmm.
So yeah,
That's cool.
I like that.
It's a scary energy. That means
Can be.
I'm vulnerable.
All right, let's see what my Oracle deck says. Oh, interesting. So the first card out is a 9. So 9 is the end of a cycle. And typically when you get to the end of a cycle, you're in preparation to start a new one, obviously. This one is Treasure Island. So on the card is a turtle that's swimming. And the turtle has a treasure chest on its back that's filled with gold, but also hearts. So it's saying that abundance of love, resources. Money is not just money, it's also a resource, right? And the turtle is going towards its treasure island. But what the turtle doesn't realize is that he has the treasure on his back. The treasure is within you. It is the story within you. It is who you are, who you come to the table as. So that is really the treasure, not that you necessarily need to seek something. Now, also, the turtle does not go fast. The turtle is methodic. It takes one stroke after another to get to its destination. And water represents emotion. So the water here is very deep, but it's not turned up. It's not stormy. So it's saying, your journey of writing your book will be emotional, but you've got to take it one step at a time. No, it's not a rush. It's not a race, but truly the treasure is within you. Now, the next card's a 33. 33 is the number of a master teacher. So this is also telling me that the listeners, the general listeners that are hearing this right now, they each have an experience that allows them to be a master teacher to someone else. And so the card itself is chaos and conflict. Now, interestingly enough, this is a zebra that's wearing a giraffe's coat. So what this is chaos and conflict can sometimes happen, but the real goal of this is to release that's not you. Like, the zebra's not being authentic by wearing a giraffe's coat. So it must remove the giraffe's coat in order to be its authentic, unique self. So, and sometimes when we do that, when we are authentic, in our writing, in sharing our stories, it can create chaos and conflict. But that's okay, because that's part of the journey, right? And our last card today is a 10. Which is the end of a cycle. And energetically, you've actually already stepping into the new cycle, because 10 is a 1 plus 0, which is a 1, the start of something new. Now, this is Unfinished Symphony. So very interesting, because she looks very playful. She looks like a court jester or something like that. So very playful energy. But she's sitting on an egg. So the egg represents fertility, the birth of new ideas, creation. And there's also a keyboard here, so representing the music. So symphony and music, that might be something that our listeners may find when you play music, especially at certain hertz, it can actually stimulate your brainwaves to be more productive or be more creative, those kinds of things. So, and really, there's a little bird on here too. There's, is there another bird? Nope, just the one bird. Is there one on this card? Let me check. Not just this one. So birds are also messengers. So there may be a message that comes through music for somebody in our listener scope, that basically the idea for your book may come through a song, may come through some type of music. So heed that. Don't just say, oh, that's a weird coincidence. It's not. It's meant for you, and you were supposed to hear that, because that little message that comes to you in maybe a song is going to be help you spark that idea and get moving on your book.
Super cool, Susie.
And it's interesting that you had like that is very much the start of something new. And your card also was like, go ahead and embark on the journey.
Yeah, a lot of beginnings and endings there.
Yes. And the moon cycles do represent that too. So if we follow those moon cycles, it can really actually help with your life, your business, when you get into that moon energy and allow that to be a tool to use. You're not going to necessarily not do certain things because of it, but it's a guide. It's a tool, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and do you have any other words of advice or wisdom that you would like to share with our listeners today?
Yeah, I alluded to this earlier, but I am realizing more and more over time the importance of relationships
Uh,
as a tool for unlocking one's authentic voice and perspective. One of the things that I've started doing with clients, and now I'm starting to talk about more, I take the time to learn as much as I can about the ideal reader.
uh,
And I try to learn about the author's own existing relationships that most closely resemble the type of relationship that the book should have with the reader. And I will create a sort of fictional avatar, and his name is either Quincy or it's a Lorelei, and I'll
I love
send
it.
a voice memo or hire my actor friend to send a voice memo in the voice of that sort of like generic reader, but with slightly anonymized questions and scenarios that are sort of designed to play on the author's sympathies and what they care about. And the author will send a voice memo back. And that is often some of the best material that I can help an author create, because it comes from an emotional place, and the things that they say are folksy and half-baked and subjective and risky. And I'm like, yes, that is the good stuff.
That's the
Uh,
soul. That's the soul of writing that we were talking about, right? Like you
yeah.
cannot recreate that from AI. You have to
Exactly.
have it has
Exactly.
to be from that person, that their human experience and how they react or respond to something. So yeah, I love that. That's
Yeah.
such a fun way to engage the author too.
Yeah, it's fun for me. It's a way to flex my playwriting muscles because I'm writing a little monologue. And it's actually, you know what? This is a thing that I offer as a freebie. So I'll say to like any listener, if this is interesting to you and you want a voice memo from your ideal reader, shoot me a note and I'll see what I can do.
Oh my gosh. So how can people find you?
At find the words with MJ at gmail.com or find the words with MJ.com, or you can look me up on LinkedIn, MJ Halberstadt.
That is so cool. I may actually take you up on that
Do
because
it. Oh my gosh, it's so much fun.
yeah, because I just think that that is powerful. We're going to see, I think, a big divide, whether it's people who want to do AI and want to do something fast and just get a book out, and whether people who really want to go through the experience, the journey, and have a team that supports them to do that.
Mhm,
And obviously, we know which camp you and I are in.
mhm,
And we're also seeing this with audiobooks too, like people that will use
mhm,
the AI generated audiobooks, they just kind of fall flat. It's different because you're not getting the same resonance as you do with a human voice. I think it's a fascinating topic. I'm hoping that we're going to have a lot more conversations around this.
We can't get away from them.
So, but life is changing and it's changing fast. And as people that work in the publishing industry, it's our job to stay on top of it and say what's trending, what's not, what's good, what's needs to go in the dumpster.
Mhm,
Yeah, because I think that it's important for us to be able to, as we grow and expand as humans, especially in a spiritual sense, we have to preserve the humanity of the work that we do. And I think that's part of our role.
and I think that's part of the role of this podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you for including me on it.
Well, thanks for being here. This was a fun conversation. I think our listeners are going to love it. So have a great day. Thanks, MJ.
Thanks, Susie.
And if you found this interesting, I encourage you to join me for the next episode and be sure to subscribe. Until then, keep on writing so you can finish the damn book. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Finish the Damn Book, hosted by Susie Schaefer. If you're serious about finishing the damn book and want to explore what that could look like for you, your next step is a conversation. You can book a consultation at finishthebookpublishing.com and find out what it would take to move your book forward.